Hello, I am Dr. Gurumurthy. In this educational video, we will be discussing about the lumbar facet block. The lumbar facet pain is the most common cause of low back pain in elderly patients. It is the main movement restrictor and partly weight bearing joint. That is why it is more prone to become as a pain generator. To understand about the block, we should have a better understanding about the anatomy of lumbar facet joint and its innervation. So, we will be starting with the anatomy of lumbar facet joint and its innervation. The facet joint, otherwise called as zygomafascial joint, is formed by the inferior articular process of the vertebra above and the superior articular process of the vertebra below. It forms part of triple joint in the vertebral complex, which includes intravertebral body with disc as the first joint, which lies anterior, two facet joints on both sides as second and third, which lies posterior. They are 2 in number at each level, one on each side. Thus, total of 10 facet joints are there in lumbar region. The superior articular process is concave, which accommodates the convexity of the inferior articular process. The superior lumbar facets are oriented in a nearly sagittal plane, and with descent in the lumbar spine, the plane of orientation rotates outwards towards the coronal plane, so that the lumbosacral junction joints are arranged in a sagittal coronal oblique plane. Movement in the joint is permitted depending on the arrangement of facet joint. The extent to which the superior articulating process faces posteriorly prevents the anterior displacement of the intervertebral joint, restricting the excessive flexion. Resistance to excessive rotation of the joint depends on the degree to which the superior articular facet faces medially. Thus, facet joints plays important role in preventing excessive motion and forms part in weight bearing. The facet joints are true synovial joints with inferior and superior articular process lined with hyaline cartilage, which is covered by fibrous capsule. The fibrous capsule is lined inside by a synovial layer, and usually it contains synovial fluid of around 1 to 2 ml. The fibrous capsule extends from one articular pillar to other in case of superior, inferior and posterior part. It extends 2 mm from the joint line, thus leading to the formation of superior and inferior recess, which contains sometimes fat and synovial villi. Whenever you have difficulty entering the facet joint, then you can target the inferior recess. Anteriorly, the fibrous capsule merges with the ligamentum flavum, and it is difficult to isolate it separately. The facet joint forms the posterior boundary of the intervertebral foramen, and this point is very important whenever a patient with facet joint arthropathy presenting with lumbar radiculopathy. Coming to the innervation, the mixed spinal nerve, after exiting from the intervertebral foramen, divides into large anterior and small posterior primary rami. The large anterior primary rami courses anterolaterally, which contributes for the major motor and sensory part of groin, gluteal region and leg. The posterior rami, after exiting from the mixed nerve, divides into medial, intermediate and lateral branch. The lateral branch supplies the paraspinal muscles and the intermediate branch supplies the longisthmus muscle. The medial branch, after arising from the posterior rami, runs medially and posteriorly in the groove between the superior articular pillar and the transverse process. It gives off two sensory branches, one to the lower pole of the facet joint at its own level and to the upper pole of the facet joint below it. It ends in ramifying in the multifidus muscle. Thus, each facet joint receives innervation from nerve one level above and from the same level. For example, for L4 L5 facet, innervation is by medial branch of posterior primary rami of L3 and L4 nerve. For easy remembrance, just reduce one number less in the facet joint number. For example, in facet joint L3 L4, one number less is medial branch of L2 and L3 nerve. Anyhow, for practical purpose, we are going to block the middle branch in the corresponding transverse process. For example, L3 L4 medial branch is usually blocked at the L3 and L4 transverse process junction with the superior articular process. It is a brief discussion about the anatomy related to the lumbar facet joint, and now we will be looking at the indications. Coming to the indications of lumbar facet joint block includes facet joint arthropathy, chronic low back pain without radiculopathy of unknown origin, in search of pain generators in failed back surgery syndrome, in search of pain generators in case of pain in facet referral zone without any obvious local etiology. There are certain conditions where procedure should be avoided, which is considered as absolute contraindication. There are certain conditions where benefit should be weighed against the risk, and when the procedure benefit is more than the risk, then procedure can be done after taking appropriate precautions. These conditions are considered as relative contraindication. The absolute contraindications includes local or systemic infection, coagulopathy and patient on anticoagulants without adequate recommended drug-free period, lack of consent. The relative contraindications include pregnancy, patient not able to lie prone, non-cooperative patients, patient with severe cognitive dysfunction, allergy to any drugs used during the procedure, unstable vital parameters, previous surgery and anatomical variations. In case of facet joint block, two types of procedures are done, either diagnostic procedure with intra-articular and medial branch local anesthetic block, or therapeutic procedure with intra-articular steroid injection or conventional radiofrequency ablation of medial branch block. The medial branch diagnostic block has more prognostic value as it helps in guiding us whether the radiofrequency ablation of the medial branch can help the concerned patient or not, which is the only validated treatment available for facet joint arthropathy at present. Once the clinical diagnosis is made and now we had planned for the procedure, then it is time to prepare the patient for procedure. Rule out red flags like infection, tumor, trauma and significant neurological deficits. Informed and written consent is the foremost important steps. The patient should be explained about the procedure, why is it done, how is it done, what to expect from the procedure, what is the side effects and complications, further plan of management depending on the results, alternative methods if available, basic cost required for the procedure. Assess the patient's general and cardiorespiratory status with appropriate consultation and investigation before the procedure. Whenever planned for a procedure, do certain basic investigations which includes bleeding and coagulation profile and blood sugar. Do conventional lumbar X-ray to rule out any anatomical variations. In case of patients with pacemaker and implanted devices and you are planning for RF procedure, then take technical advice from the manufacturer and concerned physician. Get financial clearance from insurance bodies or any other governing bodies before admission if possible. Advice for standard pre-procedural fasting. Advise the patient to come with accompanying person on the day of procedure. There are certain protocols which should be followed in the pre-procedure room for smooth performance of the procedure and to avoid untoward complications. This includes confirm the patient identity, diagnosis and clearance for procedure, check for the availability of lab reports and radiological studies which may be required during the procedure. Start intravenous 20 gauge cannula in non-dominant hand, administer prophylactic antibiotics as per institutional protocol. The patient can be sedated with titrating dose of midazolam or propofol or sometimes with opiates so that the patient will be comfortable during the procedure. Better avoid analgesics during diagnostic procedures. Check for the availability of the following materials before you take the patient inside the procedure room. Check for CM with radiation safety device, CM compatible surgical table, metal locator, sterile gauze pieces, gloves according to the performer, betadine or chlorhexidine solution for skin preparation, sterile drapes, 1.5 inch 26 gauge needle for skin infiltration, 2 ml syringe for local anesthetic injection, 5 ml syringe for contrast injection, 1% lidocaine for skin infiltration, contrast solution like iohexol or iopamidol, 1% lidocaine or 0.25% bupivacaine for diagnostic injection, depot steroids like methylprednisolone or triamcinolone, 22 gauge, 88 or 100 mm Quincke needle with the needle tip bent by 10 degree opposite to the bevel end, low volume extension tubing and adhesive tapes. If you are planning for radiofrequency ablation, we needed RF machine with appropriate thermocouple, 20 gauge, 10 cm, 5 mm active tip, curved or straight RF needle can be used, and we need sterile gowns as we are going to deal with lot of cables. Once everything is ready, the patient can be taken inside the procedure room and place the patient in prone position, keep pillow of appropriate size and abdomen to correct lordosis, keep the patient comfortable with adequate head and leg rest and keep both arms by the side of the head. Attach standard basic monitoring as recommended by American Society of Anesthesiologists. Palpate for tender points and confirm its relation to the facet joint under fluoroscopy before you drape it. Then prepare the patient with betadine or chlorhexidine and drape the site with sterile materials. Coming to the steps in intra-articular injection, keep the C-arm in anteroposterior position with X-ray tube below the patient. Keep optimal working space between the patient and image intensifier. Use automatic brightness mode and collimator if available in the console. Identify the side and level of facet joint to be blocked. Then you take an AP image with spinous process exactly in the midline. Align the end plates of target vertebral body by craniocaudal tilt. Usually for upper lumbar vertebra, move the image intensifier caudally, and for lower facet joints, move the image intensifier cranially. Then you go for ipsilateral oblique tilt of C-arm by 22 to 30 degree until the facet joint line is open and you are able to identify the parts of scotida. The needle entry point is targeted just medial to the inferior one-third of the inferior articular process. Infiltrate with 1% lidocaine using 26 gauge hypodermic needle and wait for 1 minute. Then 22 gauge 88 mm needle is inserted on tunnel vision towards the target, and the needle is allowed to hit the inferior articular pillar, and once it hits the inferior articular pillar, you can slide the needle into the joint, which can be felt like a pop. The position can be confirmed by moving the C-arm in different angles to confirm the needle position, or by injecting 0.25 ml of contrast. Then move the C-arm to lateral view to load the transforamen needle placement. Then you go for AP image, then check out the needle tip. Then final needle position should be always confirmed in all the three, including anterior posterior, oblique and lateral view. Once the needle position is confirmed, then you can inject 1 to 1.5 ml of 1% lidocaine or 0.25% bupivacaine for diagnostic purpose. 10 mg of depot steroids can be added for therapeutic purpose. Then remove the needle and apply the sterile dressing. Coming to the steps in medial branch block, the steps are same as intra-articular facet joint block up to the squaring of vertebra. Then you move the C-arm to ipsilateral oblique until your facet joint lies in the middle of vertebral end plate. You identify the parts of Scotty dog, because ear of the dog is formed by superior articular process, and head by pedicle, front leg by inferior articular process, neck by pars interarticularis and body by lamina. Then needle entry point is targeted to the eye of the Scotty dog. Usually in L5S1 joint, the pedicle is absent and you can't see in a C-arm image. Usually for those things, you have to target the groove between the junction of superior articular process and the sacral. Then infiltrate the skin with 1% lidocaine using 26 gauge hypodermic needle and wait for 1 minute. 22 gauge 88 mm needle is inserted on tunnel vision towards the target. Once the target is reached, the needle tip position is confirmed by moving the C-arm in different angles, or you can inject 0.25 ml of iohexol after negative aspiration. Then move the C-arm to the lateral position to rule out intraforaminal needle placement. Then you can move the C-arm to anterior posterior view to confirm the needle position at the junction of superior articular process and transverse process. Once the final needle position is confirmed, you can give 0.5 ml of 1% lidocaine or 0.25% of bupivacaine. Then you remove the needle and apply sterile dressing. If dual control diagnostic block with either medial branch block or medial branch and intra-articular block with different local anesthetic agents resulted in concordant 80% pain relief, then we proceed for radiofrequency ablation of medial branch. Coming to the steps in conventional RO procedure, there is no need for end-on view of the needle. Actually, we try to place the needle parallel to the median nerve. For that, the needle is entered one segment below and lateral to the target site. We use 20 gauge 10 cm 5 mm active tip. Curved or straight needle can be used. The needle is first targeted to the transverse process, and once you have hit the transverse process, the needle is slowly moved towards the superior articular process and placed finally at the junction of superior articular process with transverse process. Once the needle is placed in the target, the lateral image is taken to rule out the intraforaminal needle placement. The needle tip should be in the lateral middle part of the neck of the superior articular process with a bony demarcation between the needle tip and the intervertebral foramen. Then AP image is taken to confirm the final needle position, which is usually at the junction of superior articular process and transverse process. Inject 0.25 ml of contrast after negative aspiration. Once confirmed, start with sensitive stimulation with 50 Hz and 0.6 volts, and it should produce paresthesia or pain in the original pain site. After this, we should go for motor stimulation, which is usually done with 2 Hz and 2 volts, and usually it produces contraction in multifidus muscle, not in the lower limbs. If contraction is produced in the lower leg, then it means the needle is close to the segmental nerve and needle should be replaced again. Once the position is confirmed, inject 1 ml of 1% lidocaine and wait for 2 minutes. Do conventional radiofrequency ablation at 80 degree for 90 seconds, and you can go up to 3 cycles by rotating the needle tip direction. Once the cycle is over, you inject 10 mg depomedrol and remove the needle and apply sterile dressing, then shift the patient to the post-procedure room. In post-procedure room, monitor the patient's vital every 10 minutes for next 30 minutes and every 30 minutes for the next 1.5 hours. Monitor for new onset muscle weakness, check for any fresh bleeding, check for bladder and bowel movements. Once the patient is out of sedation and you feel that the patient can take care of his need, then he can be discharged. In post-procedure conditions, certain conditions occur which is either unavoidable or sometimes avoidable, which can compromise our quality. We term them as side effects and complications respectively. Side effects includes, if we are going for multiple joint blocks, it can lead to the loss of proprioception from back, which can lead to ataxia. In complications, it can lead to bleeding, nerve injury, transforaminal injection leading to the epidural spread of drugs which can compromise our diagnostic value, infection, allergic reactions, soft tissue damage, neuritis in case of RF procedure. Once all these side effects and complications are ruled out, the patient is ready to discharge. While on discharge, advise the patient to maintain pain diary, antibiotic and analgesic as per institutional protocol. In case when steroid is used, inform the patient there is a chance that the pain can increase in next 24 to 48 hours and it usually comes down in next 48 hours. Inform the patient that RF procedure usually takes 3 weeks to get the benefit. Inform the patient if the injection site is painful, then he can go for localized fomentation for next 2 days and hot fomentation until feeling better. Advise the patient not to drive and to do any skilled work for the next 24 hours. Advise not to do any exaggerated physical training for next 2 weeks. Give casualty contact number in case of emergency. Thank you.